Chapter 4 The Road to Recording. If our success was somehow a part of a bigger plan with God blessing us with the gift of song and laying the groundwork for us to find each other, there were also helping hands along the way. People in our lives were angels too. Of course, Daddy Braggs became a father figure and an angel when he took us under his wing. But it was Lawrence's cousin, Roquel Billy Davis, who paved the way to our first recording. Billy actually acted in the capacity of the Four Ames unofficial manager soon after we first started out. Once we began traveling regularly, booking gigs throughout the country, Lawrence's grandmother insisted that Billy come along to help promote us and do behind-the-scenes legwork. Like almost all of Lawrence's family, he was musically gifted. A talented songwriter, he had collaborated with another up-and-coming songwriter from Detroit, Berry Gordy Jr. The two wrote hit songs for Davis's second cousin, Jackie Wilson, among them, To Be Loved and Lonely Teardrops. However, their writing partnership was eclipsed by Gordy's entrepreneurial vision. He went off to start his own record company. Billy was offered a chance to join Chess Records as a vice president. He took us along with him. Because of Billy, they agreed to record 4 songs he had written for us. So off we went to Chicago and our first recording session. Before the session, Phil and Leonard Chess came downstairs to deal with the band. The Chess brothers had a big company in the 50s, recording black rock and rollers, Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Etta James, and Bo Diddley, among others. As the meeting began, they turned to us. Hey fellas, before you record, you're going to have to change your name. We were caught completely off guard. They continued breaking it down. Apparently, they had given this a lot of thought. You call yourselves the Four Ames, but there's already a group out there, the Ames brothers, spelled A-M-E-S. They're a white group, but we can't have the Four Ames coming out of Chess even if it's spelled different. I protectively jumped in. I think people will know the difference, but it was clear their minds were already made up. Well, we just can't have that. You have to change your name. Case closed. We looked at each other, totally unprepared, but we immediately started brainstorming. Well, we were aiming for the stars, shooting for the moon. We want to be on top, to signify what we're trying to do. The music director chimed in. What about the Four Tops? That rang a bell. So that's when the Four Tops were born, in 1956 at Chess Records. That day we recorded the 4 songs Billy had written, and they released one single. The A-side of the 45 was Kiss Me Baby, but DJs liked the B-side, Could It Be You? It didn't sell a thing. We didn't really have a deal with Chess, so that was the end of that. Not having a hit record didn't stop our momentum. Even though we had been rechristened as the Four Tops by a respected record label, we were still more into live singing and performing. In the 50s, if your live act was good enough, you could make it in the world of entertainment. We still believed that we were as good as the Mills Brothers. We could sing the kind of songs that people loved to hear in showrooms, supper clubs, dance halls, or performing arts centers. We kept up learning those kinds of songs. Our repertoire was vast since we had the ability to learn a song in half a day. While we sat around waiting for gigs, we were always singing and rehearsing. Feeling like we were beginning to hit our stride, we decided to go to the mecca of show business, New York City, find a place to stay, and look for work however long it took to get a break. Somewhere along the way, we'd met a drummer, a nice Jewish guy, and his mother happened to manage an apartment building on 59th Street. She rented us a studio apartment with one Murphy pull-out bed on the wall. That was all. The first night we got there, we looked around our new apartment and started laughing. Well, let's flip a coin to see who gets to sleep in the bed first. The rest of us can hit the floor. Staring at the hard wood floor without a carpet chased away the thrill of having our own place in New York. Lawrence had heard that Errol Garner, the virtuoso jazz pianist who often vocalized while he played, was appearing at Birdland. We loved jazz, and Birdland was the home to legendary performers like Charlie Yardbird Parker and John Coltrane, so off we went to enjoy the show. Seeing Errol Garner play in person was amazing, and when he finished his set, he told the audience he was going to rest up before the second show. Savoring his drink, Lawrence looked around feeling inspired and hit us with, "Fellas, let's go up there and start singing." Even though all of us had nerve, that idea didn't go over too well. Obie piped up, "No man, this is New York, we can't be doing that here." Lawrence persisted, "Damn it, we came here to hustle a job. We should just go up there and sing. It might turn into something. There's people here that can give us a break. They got shows to book, 3 or 4 acts a night." We sat at the bar debating whether to go for it. Lawrence didn't quit. "Let's go up there and sing." We finally agreed, since we knew he wasn't going to give up. "Okay, you're right, there might be some agents here." We straightened our jackets, slicked back our hair, quickly commandeered the stage and took the mic. Surprisingly, it was still on. We started singing, "Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm blue," with no musical accompaniment, just a cappella, full harmony. We sounded just like the 4 freshmen. People stopped talking and started listening. We sang the whole song, and nobody asked who the hell we were, told us to get off the stage, or ran us out. People were clapping and calling out for more as we climbed off the stage, and just like we had experienced at the Detroit Auto Show, a man materialized from the crowd, saying the words we wanted to hear. "Fellas, I'm an agent. I book a lot of the hotels up in the Catskills. You heard of 'em? It was a repeat of our Idlewild experience, except this time the resort was north of Manhattan, a summer retreat for New York Jews to enjoy time with their family in peace and tranquility among their own culture. Come to my office, let's talk. I might be able to book you all up there for a show. He handed me his card, making an appointment for the next morning. We showed up promptly, but his secretary was unexpectedly rude and condescending, making us wait until 5 or 6 o'clock before telling us he was too tied up to see us. But after waiting on him all day, we decided to keep sitting there until he left the office. He'd have no choice but see us on the way out and be forced to say something. When we didn't leave, his secretary grew snippier. It probably infuriated her that we were acting as if we had minds of our own. As she started to insist that we leave immediately, the agent walked out of his office and he too seemed annoyed to see us there. "Oh yeah, forgot you were here," he said, not apologetically. "That's how insignificant we were when we first started out. I attribute our staying power in the face of such disregard to the fact that there were 4 of us. It took our collective willpower to keep pushing against years of obstacles, and despite repeated discouragements and disappointments, there were people of every race and station in life who were helpful and kind from the moment we met them. Such was the case with the owner of the Catskills Resort, who invited us to join his family for lunch after knowing us for only 10 minutes. About a week before, the rude agent called, arranging for an audition with this club owner. We sang just one song and he immediately hired us, insisting we sit down around a long picnic table and treating us like we'd been a part of the family forever. We were put up in a little 5-bedroom shack on the grounds, which was all ours for the summer while we played several clubs in the Catskills area, the Pines, Flangers, and Clingers. Most of the entertainment was comprised of leading black artists. On Saturday nights after the midnight show at the Pines, all the black artists would get together and do a jam session. One night we wound up working with Cab Calloway. Another night we jammed with Sarah Vaughan. Us 4 young guys just turning 20 were hanging with the greats. I felt bad that I had let down my mother not taking that college scholarship. However, the education I was getting as a young entertainer was priceless. Slowly, word of mouth started spreading about the Four Tops All-American sound. We continued to hustle, never knowing where the next gig would lead. Crisscrossing the country, we picked up jobs at the Palm Springs Supper Club and on the Playboy Penthouse circuit. We opened with Larry Steele's Smart Affairs, the largest black entertainment touring group in the U.S., also in Canada, Australia, and Puerto Rico, from the 40s through the 60s. We even scored a brief stint on Broadway, in Olivette Miller and Bert Gibson's Highlights, a review produced by the daughter of show business legend, Flournoy E. Miller. We were 1 degree of separation from the legendary Broadway lyricist, producer, and playwright himself. Miller's Broadway show, Shuffle Along, had been the first all-black musical on the Great White Way, a smash hit in the 20s. In Olivette's Highlights, the Tops performed big operatic numbers, successfully touring the Chitlin Circuit en route to Broadway. We were singing alongside trained opera singers, holding our own and having a great time. To our dismay, the show only lasted 4 days in New York, but it only whet our appetite for more. Daddy Braggs felt a growing paternal pride, noting how we were becoming more polished and professional each year. He felt we were ready to face one of the toughest audiences in the world, so without telling us, he managed to get a booking at the famed Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York, where the audience was used to seeing only the best. If you didn't measure up, within minutes, you'd be booed off the stage with no mercy. When he shared this good news with us, we were stunned, wondering how he could have pulled this off without us having a hit record. "Don't you worry how I got the gig," he reassured us. "If y'all all sing like you do at my club, they're going to love you. Plus, I'm going to have a surprise waiting for you when you get there. So go ahead of time, get with the band a day early, then go to your rooms and check the surprise out." Of course, when we got to New York, we followed Daddy Braggs's direction to the letter. He met us as we checked into the rooming house he'd booked. Then he watched as we entered our rooms to find 3 suit boxes laid out on each bed. Inside were 3 of the most beautiful stage outfits that you could imagine. One was a brown Dupioni silk with matching pants, shoes, shirt, and tie. The second was a short Eisenhower-style waiter jacket made of maroon silk with black satin pants, and the third consisted of sparkling silver-gray jackets with contrasting black ties. We were absolutely speechless. Each outfit was more incredible than the next. We had a hard time deciding what to wear our first night. We picked the silver jackets and had them on when we went down to rehearsal with the band. As we were warming up with songs from the American Songbook rather than R&B, the band leader, Reuben Phillips, realized that we weren't singing the Apollo's standard fare. With his musical ear, he could hear that our voices blended together in a 4-part harmony that sounded like 5. He whistled, "Thumbs up. Boy, you guys can sing." That helped with the show business jitters we were beginning to feel. After all, this was New York. That night, we opened with a song I'd made up, "We're the Tops." The lyrics went something like, "We're the tops, the places we'd like to go. The sands in Las Vegas, Paris, Hollywood's the place for me. We're the tops." After about 4 bars, the intimidating, hard-ass Apollo crowd started clapping. Then we sang "In the Still of the Night," a jazzy big band number that kind of soared in the air. I could feel the crowd's energy connecting with ours, catching the rhythm, popping their fingers and nodding their heads. That's when it hit me. In the Still of the Night was the song we were singing in my dream. The one I had after I told my mother I was going to become a singer, and she begged me to pray to God for guidance. And here we were, just like in my dream, wearing the same amazing outfits, the silver jackets that flashed like stars under the lights. My God, it wasn't a dream, it was a sign, an affirmation. Tears started coming from my eyes. The show was magnificent, ending with What Did I Say by Ray Charles as we boogied off the stage. We got a standing ovation. It was just amazing. As soon as we got backstage, the guys saw me crying. Why the fuck you crying, Duke? You remember my dream? These are the same outfits and we were singing in the still of the night. That was another reminder that something bigger than us, something we could not explain, had touched our lives. Once again, we hugged each other and recommitted to our dream. And to each other, no matter what. This was forever. Thanks to Daddy Braggs, we worked in the Idlewild Revue nearly every summer during the late 50s. After the summer season, he kept us busy in a traveling show in the fall and winter. He turned the Idlewild Revue into a touring show, booking noted artists like the Harlem Brothers, T-Bone Walker, a popular guitar player, Arthur Prysock, a handsome baritone jazz singer, even a dancer, Cliff Hurd, who could barely use his legs but danced his ass off on crutches. And of course, the dancing girls, the showgirls, and the Four Tops. We had a lot of fun taking the show on the road. We worked in Chicago, Oklahoma, and quite a few other big cities. The last show we performed was in Boston in 1961, and 3 weeks into the tour, the club caught fire and burned to the ground. All of our costumes, props, and everything else was destroyed. It totally broke Daddy Braggs's heart, as well as those of all of the entertainers he had nurtured over the years. It was like a family member had passed away. Daddy Braggs gathered himself together and said, "Well, folks, the show is over." Devastated, he went back to another of his passions, racing horses. He owned quite a few. Years later, in 1992, while watching one of his horses run in Virginia, Daddy Braggs had a fatal heart attack. It crushed us because he was more than just a producer. He was our daddy, our manager, a true visionary. He had the foresight to create the Idlewild Revue in the 50s, preceding Berry Gordy's Motortown Revue, while live performances were most popular before the record business began to dominate. But Daddy Braggs was more than an entertainment impresario. He was a genuine father figure. Even today, when I think of him, he is sorely missed. After our ties with Daddy Braggs ended, a new decade was upon us, and it seemed like a new era in music began. Things were changing in the entertainment industry. Berry Gordy was getting a foothold in the recording business, starting his own company in 1959. Billy Davis was going with Berry's sister, Gwen. Billy and Berry had remained close from their songwriting days, so it was only natural for Billy to begin working with Berry again. He approached us about making a deal. "Hey, you want to go with this company that Berry is starting?" he asked. Our answer, which didn't take long for the four of us to agree on, was no. We hadn't been thrilled with what we'd heard about the two other black-owned record companies that had recently started, specifically that they didn't treat their artists right, and that sales for these black-owned companies were limited regionally. Also, we didn't want our music pigeonholed into the solely R&B category. Berry's company didn't yet have a track record for selling nationally, so we passed on the offer. Plus, we weren't actively pursuing a record deal then, and we felt that if we did, we would look for a real record company. It didn't take long for us to realize we'd passed up a wonderful opportunity. Meanwhile, Billy also chose another direction, deciding to focus on the advertising industry, writing jingles and slogans for radio and television commercials. He became vice president of McCann Erickson, one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world, writing and producing such identifiable and successful jingles as "It's the Real Thing," "Things Go Better with Coke," "I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke" for Coca-Cola, and "If You've Got the Time, We've Got the Beer" for Miller High Life. There were no hard feelings when we didn't jump at the chance to go with Motown. Billy also knew we saw our music and ourselves as more than just R&B, and that we wanted to go beyond that market. We weren't trying to be white, and we weren't saying that we didn't like being black. We were just saying that we were as good as anybody in the business, as any group, and wherever that led us, that's where we were trying to go. Ironically, we learned later that was the same philosophy Berry Gordy laid out when he talked to his writers. He told them he didn't want them to write songs for just one corner of the world or just one neighborhood. He wanted them to write songs for everybody. Although we didn't sign with Motown, we kept working the R&B circuit. Jackie Wilson let us open his show while we were struggling between gigs. We got to see firsthand how crazy those one-night concerts could be for an R&B artist of his level. We saw the toll it took on Jackie, who missed a lot of shows, drinking and carrying on. We loved him, but we saw the kind of artist that we didn't want to be and the cost that compromising might exact from us. We had to figure out how to succeed on our own terms, singing our perfect harmonies and reaching out to a broader audience. It was Twez at his Casablanca agency who got us one step closer to the kind of careers we were dreaming about. He'd started booking us at top-of-the-line nightclubs out west, inching us closer to big-time venues in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. We started doing yearly appearances at the Eastwood Country Club in San Antonio, Texas, which was a big club with a casino in the back. Lots of black GIs hung out there and gambled. There was an Air Force base nearby, and other members of the armed forces were stationed in the area. In the audience one night, among all the uniforms and military crowd, was Major Riddle, one of the owners of the Dunes Hotel and Club in Vegas, a tall, heavy-set guy with gang connections. When he approached us saying he wanted to book us to sing at the Dunes, our hearts skipped a beat. But there was one condition. He wanted us to bring our own rhythm section. "How soon do you want us?" I said, not letting that large request stop us. "How soon can you get it together?" he shot back. Not wanting to waste another minute or let his enthusiasm wane, I threw out an answer, not thinking about how much time it would take to put together a group of musicians, one that could learn all of our material, rehearse, and travel across the country without much notice. "Will you give us a couple of weeks?" I asked. "I'll put you down for a date in 2 weeks. As an afterthought, I asked, "How much will you pay us? How much do you charge?" I just threw out a figure. I wasn't sure about Vegas bookings or how much to pay the band. "What about $1,600 a week?" "Okay, that's a deal." I didn't know if this would cover all our expenses, travel, and accommodations, plus a salary, including our new rhythm section, but a deal was a deal. We went back to Detroit and found 4 great musicians, guys we knew hanging in clubs and listening to music around the city: a pianist, Kirk Lightsey, a tenor player, Joe Henderson, a drummer, Roy Brooks, and a bass player whose last name was Sherrill. We rehearsed in Detroit for a couple of weeks, and the 4 of us drove all the way to California in Levi's 4-door Dodge without reverse. We sang all the way, rehearsing our material. At every stop, we ran into segregation. When we got to Vegas, we couldn't stay on the Strip. We stayed at a motel near what they called the Dust Bowl, which is where the black entertainers lived, in the desert. But it didn't deter us. We didn't dwell on the fact that we were black boys trying to make it in white clubs. We'd made it this far. We were young, bold, and full of confidence. We opened with our rhythm section at the Dunes in 1959, calling ourselves the 4 Tops Plus 4. I was in charge of payroll. We had to split $1,600 a week among the 8 of us, which didn't turn out to be that much. $200 apiece, out of which we had to pay for our rooms and other expenses. Plus, I had to send my earnings home to support my growing family. But being in Vegas was more important to me than making money. I probably would have paid to perform there. We were moving toward what we wanted to do. Unfortunately, I think I let our good luck get to my head. Our first show started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and our second was 8 at night. In our downtime between shows, we started gambling. The last week of our gig, I lost more money than I had, all of the plus 4's payroll that was in my pocket. I kept on gambling, thinking I would have a little winning streak, but it never happened. I lost it all. The reality of what I had just done hit me, and I was too embarrassed and panicked to tell anyone. I tried to figure out what I was going to do. I came up with a plan. All of the wives of the Tops, except mine, had traveled to Las Vegas with us. Inez stayed home to take care of the kids. After the second show, I went to the cashier's window and got the rest of what was owed to us. It was just enough to pay the Tops, not the musicians. I went out the side door of the casino straight to Obi's wife, Val. I told her that I'd fucked up. I gave her the money to pay the Tops and quickly beat it to the airport. En route to Detroit, I had a layover in Chicago. I decided to go to Robert's Show Lounge, a club we'd worked in previously. Feeling sorry for my dumb ass, I sat at the bar drinking up what little money I had left. The club owner knew me and saw how upset I was. He felt sorry for me, and the rest of the drinks were on the house. I sat there drinking and feeling terrible, but there was nothing I could do. It was like I'd just committed a hit and run. I couldn't even face my partners. When we finally talked about it back home, they didn't make a big deal about it. It was over and done with. I was relieved, but letting them down killed me. I managed to get home and tried my best to forget what had happened, until I got a call from the musicians union. The plus 4 guys reported what I'd done. The union demanded that I make restitution. I agreed to do so, happy to pay $50 out of my forthcoming paychecks until I paid off the debt. Surprisingly, we remained friends. They all forgave me, and I don't know how. I know I wouldn't have forgiven me. I probably would have kicked my own ass. After that, I never in my life took another penny from anyone. It was a hard but important lesson, one that I will always regret learning the way I did. Never touch anyone else's money. Never use money for anything other than for what it was intended. But the even bigger lesson was I'd never do anything that would come between the Tops and me. I'd never again let that happen. This lapse in my judgment created a terrible turning point in my marriage. The other wives had continued to dance up to that point, taking gigs, but Inez stopped to take care of Kai. It was hard on her financially, with the group working only sporadically with lapses between paychecks. After she heard from the other wives what I'd done with the money in Vegas, she said, "To hell with this." My poor judgment was too much for her. She asked me to leave. Sadly, I did, living in various places: hotels, with family members, a rented apartment, then finally a place of my own in a suburb outside of Detroit. The life I had chosen was difficult enough for me, but it was my dream. The toll it took upon my family was considerable. It was a sacrifice that I chose to make, and I couldn't expect my family to continue supporting my dreams indefinitely. At this point, the group had made enough headway for me to believe that realistically, one day we'd be a success. We wouldn't have to worry about financial security. But we soon learned that that peace of mind was virtually non-existent in show business. It was something our next mentor, the legendary Billy Eckstein, taught us. A velvety baritone, Eckstein was once the rival of Frank Sinatra. When he took us under his wing, he warned us, after the big parade, it gets quiet as a mouse. You have to be ready for that. So in between gigs, we tried to keep busy and productive. We worked on our routine, rehearsed our music, and tried to hustle more gigs. We never knew how long these dry spells would last. Being in the presence of great performers like the great Mr. B helped sustain us. Billy schooled us from 1961 to 1963 when we sang backup for him. He was one of the best guys in the business. Not only was he handsome, he could sing his butt off too. Also, he was one of the sharpest dressers around. He had just recorded an album with the Hi-Lo's, a clean-cut white group renowned for their vocal harmonies. Someone told him that there were 4 black guys who could sing 4-part harmonies and may be able to go on the road with him. He invited us out to LA to audition. The week prior to our meeting, we learned 4 tunes from his album with the Hi-Lo's, and we had the numbers down by the time we flew out to LA. After greeting us in his apartment, Eckstein cut to the chase. Well, now I've got to put you all through a test. We responded with confidence, pointing to his recent LP. Go ahead, which one of the songs do you want? I don't want any of them songs, he said, handing us another recording. I want you all to sing this one. Me, Obi, and Levi were like, shit, what are we gonna do? Lawrence kept his cool. Okay, let's hear it. Lawrence listened to the song, then asked Mr. B to play it again. After hearing it twice, he requested, can we go in the bathroom for 5 minutes? Mr. B was cool. Sure, take your time, motherfucker. In the bathroom, Lawrence taught us the first verse and chorus of the song. 10 minutes was all it took for us to learn those parts. We had developed an ear by then from working with Lawrence, and we could pick up a 4-part close harmony almost as well as he could, though Lawrence always could hear it first. After our quick rehearsal, we were confident and prepared to go back out and tell Mr. B we were ready. He nodded, still real nonchalant. Sing, motherfuckers, go ahead. We started singing, really getting into it, and he abruptly broke in. Hold it right there. I tell you what, I can pay y'all $800 a week. Y'all are some singing motherfuckers. Mr. B was impressed by our vocal ability. He was less enthusiastic about our energetic dance moves. While we were performing, singing backup for him, we were having such a ball we must have gotten carried away, prancing around, doing so many dance steps that by the end of the songs we were singing flat. Mr. B wouldn't stand for that. I hired y'all to sing, not to be dancing around my fucking stage. Cut out them goddamn steps. That's one thing I can't have is nobody singing flat on my stage. That's the way he talked, a mixture of gangsta bluntness and hardcore showbiz profanity. He didn't mince his words. We quickly got the message. Billy was a real pro. We knew we were lucky to hang around him and soak up his knowledge. We had been groomed by show business professionals, promoters, booking agents, record executives, and managers, but we had never been schooled by a legendary singer. We studied the way Mr. B dressed, the way he gambled, his proficiency on the golf course, his vocal delivery, and the finesse he had with his fans. We benefited from everything he taught us, especially the wisdom he laid on us about careers slowing down after reaching peaks and crescendos. After we wrapped up our gig with him, we got a tip from a promoter friend who turned us on to a recording company in New York. We were lucky enough to immediately sign another recording contract. Our deal with Riverside Records was for 4 songs. The stipulation was that if one of them became a hit, they would give us a full record deal. While we were in the studio, the success of Motown Records became the topic of conversation. Everyone had been following the amazing impact this upstart company had been having on the industry, with at least 2 or 3 hit records constantly on the charts. We had already been through 2 or 3 other record deals by then, and we asked ourselves why we were recording in New York instead of back in Detroit with Motown. We agreed that it sure would be nice to have a deal back home. In the meantime, since we were in the vicinity, we picked up a few gigs in the Catskills. One night, a talent scout from The Tonight Show was in the audience. Afterwards, he approached us. I'd love to have you guys perform that number, In the Still of the Night, on my show, he said. When? It didn't take more than the blink of an eye for me to try to seal the deal. As soon as you can, he responded. How long you gonna be in the area? After a brief conversation, we settled on a date for the following week when we'd be back in the city. The other date we were excited about was seeing the Motown Revue at the Apollo Theater. At that time, Motown had only been around for 2 or 3 years, so the Revue wasn't what it eventually grew to be. Still, the Marvelettes had already scored a hit. Martha and the Vandellas had a hit. Mary Wells and Marvin Gaye were also on the bill. Watching the show that night, we were so impressed that someone would package a show with young Detroit artists and put them in the spotlight. We kept looking at each other, wishing we were in it. We knew we would tear it up. Also, we regretted not signing with Motown when we had had the chance. But we had faith that whatever happened in our careers, it would be for the best. We had faith in something greater than us having a hand in our lives. And once again, elements conspired to lift our voices higher and closer to reaching the audience we had been aiming for. While we were singing on The Tonight Show in New York, Barry Gordy was watching TV in Detroit with his director of A&R, William Mickey Stevenson. "Damn, man," Barry had said to him. "I always liked the Tops. I love them singing those old standards. I don't have nobody in my stable like that. Do you know how to get in touch with them?" "Yeah," Mickey told him. "We're great pals. We were in New York just finishing up our Riverside recording when Mickey reached us. Both Obi and I had known Mickey as a successful songwriter, producer, and the man who had organized Motown's legendary in-house band, the Funk Brothers. Now he was doing artist development. We were amazed when he told us, 'Man, Barry wants you all. Sounds like he wants y'all bad.'" Later, we learned he had been following our career. He described his impression of us: smooth, classy, and polished. They were big stuff. I could see how loyal they were to each other, and I knew they would be the same way to me and Motown. Just as excited as he was about us, we eagerly finished our recording and went straight to Detroit. 2 days later, we drove over to Hitsville, an ordinary-looking house on West Grand Boulevard, a few blocks down from the General Motors headquarters, which Barry Gordy had transformed into his mega recording company. Up in Barry's office, he gave us a wonderful greeting. "Man, I love you guys. I remember seeing you all at the Flame Show Bar and other places around town. I love the way y'all sing, especially the old standards. Those wonderful jazz sounds, beautiful harmonies. It was music to our ears. We were holding our breath until we heard him say, 'How would you like to join Motown?' Man, that would be great." I spoke for all of us, knowing it was what we'd been hoping and praying for, and it's actually ironic because we were hoping we could find some type of way to join Motown. He laughed. "Well, maybe this is the time." We explained how easy it was for us to learn songs, that we liked all kinds of music, but that we wanted to go further than just the R&B circuit. We believed the Four Tops were bigger than that. Barry agreed, saying that he didn't want any of his artists stuck into that little corner. "So I'd like to offer you all a deal," he said, pulling out a contract and passing it across his desk. "Here's one of my contracts. It's for 6 years. Look it over and tell me what you want." It was obvious he meant, look it over right now while we were sitting there. I paused, having gained 6 years of experience acting as the Top's unofficial spokesperson, handling most of the business. "Well, what we'd like to do, Barry," I said, knowing that the Tops would back me up, "is take the contract home and study it a little bit." He pushed back. "Oh no," he said. "I never let my contracts out of my office. I don't do that." I was pretty confident in negotiating, so I said, "Barry, you know that we've signed a couple of record deals, but we always have to look it through and see what's in it. It's business, you know." I could tell he wasn't used to this kind of exchange with his artists. "Well, I do business different ways," he said. "You sign it right here or not." I stood my ground. I was accustomed to listening to Mr. B and Daddy Braggs, even my own daddy, who spoke up for his rights as an Indian immigrant. I guess that's where I got the courage to say, "Well, man, we can't just sign it sight unseen. As much as we'd love to be here, we're gonna have to take it home and look at it, you know?" I guess he could tell we weren't going to back down. "Well, you need your attorney to look at it?" he asked. "Maybe, but maybe we can read it," I said, now understanding what his main concern was. "We're going to read it ourselves and talk it through overnight," I assured him. He thought about it a minute. He cussed a little, almost angry. "Okay, man, I don't usually do this kind of shit. You can bring it back tomorrow." So we left, sat around, and studied the contract. It appeared to be a standard contract. We reviewed the basic things, read the top of each paragraph, and understood most of it. We saw a provision to use us as background singers on certain records for which we would be compensated a small fee of $6.25 as a voice for hire, with no royalties. This didn't pose a problem since we had sung backup for other artists in the past for a small cut of the royalties, but the records never sold, so it didn't matter. All we were looking for was getting our own hits from the company. What concerned us most was that there was no mention of an advance upon signing, which was something we needed and had to address. As we kept talking, trying to figure it all out, Levi shook his head, growing frustrated. "Look at all this paper. It takes an attorney to read a contract. I don't really want to be involved with all this. This is Motown. What are we going to do?" Obie and Lawrence were also tired of trying to figure it out. They chimed in. "We've been to Columbia Records, Chess, Riverside, and we still don't have a hit." They were right. I sat staring at the contract, unsure of what our next move should be. "What the fuck, man? This is home," Levi said, helping me out. "Gordy's making hits. This seems like where we ought to be." There was really nothing more to talk about. We all agreed we'd go for it. The next day, we were back in Barry's office, ready to sign the contract if he would give us an advance. "Look, man, I don't do that," he said after hearing what we needed to sign. "But here's what I'll do. I guarantee that you'll have hits at this record company. Y'all are good enough. I know I can make you hits." "Can you put it in writing?" I asked. "No, but I can guarantee you'll have hits," he said. "Since you know we'll have hits," I said, knowing this was a strong possibility, "we're just asking for an advance against the money you'll be making." He thought about this for a minute and then reached into his pocket. "Look, here's the best I can do. I got $400, $100 for each of you. He laid the money on the table. We looked at each other. This wasn't what we expected. We wanted more. We needed more. But it was something. It was Motown, and we were on our way.